The following is a special video presentation of the Hennepin County Library.
Hi, welcome to a discussion with Suze Orman. I'm Eileen Cavanaugh from the Hennepin County Library Program Office, and my guest today is the author of You've Earned It, Don't Lose It. Welcome, Suze.
Well,
I'm glad to have you with us.
Yeah.
Suze, you're a certified financial planner, a retirement specialist, and a consumer activist. So you come to this show with quite a lot of expertise in the topic. And I want to start out by talking about a little article in USA Today that recently reported that the baby boomers will have to save $1 million in order to assure themselves of a $50,000 retirement income, $50,000 a year. Speak to it.
Well, what's interesting is they're probably right, that it's not like $1 million is that much money anymore. However, it's probably more than most of us could ever conceive of having. So
much less saving.
Much less saving. But what's interesting is that even if they were to save this $1 million, chances of them making a mistake with it, not having long-term care insurance, or not having a durable power of attorney for health care, or better known as a living will, or those things in place that would keep it safe, are even greater. So one of the reasons that I wrote the book is You've Earned It, Don't Lose It, is that if you happen to manage to save any amount of money, it doesn't matter if it's $1 million or $10,000, you have to have what's in place to make sure that whatever you have doesn't go out the window.
I remember one of my college instructors saying that women now know how to earn money, but they don't know what to do with it. Have you found this to be true?
You know what's really true? Not only do women not know what to do with it, men don't know what to do with it either. However, the men won't say that they don't know what to do about it, and women will. The day has come, however, when we don't have the money anymore to use a financial advisor and have somebody charge us 5 or 6% in commissions, when there are vehicles now that we can invest in without any commissions whatsoever. So whether you're a man or whether you're a woman, you have to start educating yourself that if you're going to invest, you need to do it on your own, because financial advisors might not have your best interest at heart.
So kind of like the medical profession and telling people that now we have to be medical consumers, we have to be partners with the medical profession, you're saying that we have to be partners with financial planners, or perhaps even without financial planners, and educate ourselves on how to make our money work for us so that we will have enough.
Or not only work for us, but to keep it safe. You see, most financial advisors need to change from selling you products to being true financial advisors. So maybe they start working like a lawyer, where you pay them $50 or $100 or $200 an hour, wherever your financial planner ranks in that, and you pay them a fee for them to give you advice, but they're not attached to whether you follow that advice or not. They're not selling you some investment. So the day of commissions has got to go out the window, and what has to replace it are financial advisors that work on a fee structure.
So you're almost seeing that as a kind of conflict of interest when they're giving you advice and at the same time selling you a specific product.
Not kind of a conflict of interest, it's a total conflict of interest. And I know, I was on Wall Street for almost 15 years, so when somebody comes in and they have a lump sum of money, and I know I can tell them to do something, and maybe I'll make $5,000 by telling them to do something, or they could do something else and I wouldn't make a penny, what do you tell them to do? So it takes an unusual financial advisor who works on commissions to not tell that person what's necessarily best for them, but what's best for themselves. But financial advisors have to learn not just to talk to people about what to do with their money, but is everything in place to keep it safe? Do they have a trust? Do they have, if you live in a community property state, or, is your house held in community property, or all the little things that they never talk about because they don't make money off of those things.
In the article, it also talked about how little Americans save. So how much do we need to save, or what percentage of our income do we need to be looking at saving?
As much as possible. The chances of Social Security being there when we get older, or even if we're collecting it, are getting lesser and lesser as we go on. The chances of Medicare, our medical system, going belly up are great. So the more you save, the more you'll have to live off of. So there's never too much that you can save. However, most people work in a place where they have a 401k or a retirement plan. And most people put maybe 5 or 6% of what they're making away. What I tell people is you have to put away the maximum that the law allows you to put away in those retirement plans, because it could mean hundreds of thousands of dollars difference to you in the long run. So if you're allowed to put 15% in your 401k, put it in. Don't just stay with the little 5 or 6% that you're doing. Now you're going to say to me, but Susie, we can't pay our bills. How do you expect us to put more money away? If you can't pay your bills today with a paycheck, how are you going to pay your bills when you finally retire?
Because they aren't going to get less.
That's right. So you've got to make the sacrifice today and put it away and try it.
Well, you know, what you're saying implies self-discipline on the part of people, and maybe as Americans, the baby boomer generation are not as self-disciplined. I was just talking to a young man the other day, and we were comparing our styles of saving. And he said, well, yes, but you've been through the Second World War, and you've been through the aftermath of the Depression. You know what it is like to do without things. I don't. My generation doesn't know what it's like to do without, or why they should go without. So does this kind of feed into this rationale that people, my own daughter was saying to me recently, oh, Mom, why should we save? We only get 1 or 2% on our savings.
It's a lack of knowledge. But what will happen to those people that you're talking to when they turn 40 or 50? All of a sudden they'll go into the panic mode, where they'll understand that in possibly 5, 10, 15 years, they're not going to be working anymore. Therefore, all of a sudden their psychology switches and they start putting it away, but they're putting it away too late. If you're at 25 and you put $100 a month away, and let's say you did it into a growth mutual fund, which averaged 10%, which is not a lot for a mutual fund, by the time you turn 65, you'd have $1 million. If you waited till you were 35, however, 10 years to put that same $100 a month away, you'd only have $300,000. And do you see what I'm saying? And
Big
if
difference.
you wait till you're 45, maybe you'd have $70,000 or $90,000. So if that money were to earn between 10 and 12%, those are the kinds of returns. But if you wait 20 years, you'd have $70,000 to $90,000 rather than almost $1 million.
To say nothing of the fact that that $1 million may not even seem as much.
But it is what the USA
retirement.
article says that you'll need to have when you retire.
You talk in the book about the 3 legs of retirement, and I'm gathering that you're saying 2 of those legs are pretty shaky.
It's actually almost all the legs are really shaky. Corporations right now are downsizing tremendously. So if you happen to be lucky enough that your corporation lets you stay working for them after the age of 50, it's a blessing. I can't tell you how many people I've seen that have been faced with early retirement at the age of 50 when they thought they were going to be working for another 15 years. So everything in our system is getting a little shaky, which is why I wrote the book. The book gives you explicit guidelines that if you follow the guidelines in the book, and it reads like a novel. It's not like your typical financial book that will put you to sleep, but if you follow what's in the book, it will keep whatever you have safe, no matter how large or how small. But whatever you have is important.
I want to say a little bit about the format of the book. When you mentioned that it reads like a novel, there are stories, or I guess what we might call case studies of people and problems they've run into, and then followed by your discussion of how they might have avoided that. There are lots of charts and worksheets that I found fun doing for my own use.
Have you ever read a financial book before?
A few, but not many.
And when you read them, did you finish them? Or did you just kind of scan them and then you got bored? Or didn't understand what they were talking about?
Usually with a financial book, I've zeroed in just on the chapter or chapters that might apply to me.
So in this book, when I first came in, you said you read it cover to cover. And what I have found, especially
I even started at the beginning.
is with women are writing me saying this is the first financial book that they feel and that they have read cover to cover and that they love. It's like their new best friend. It's like their Bible in a sense, that they know that when their husband dies, they're now going to be okay. It's interesting, so it's quite rewarding that that's happening with it.
Well, one of the important decisions that people need to make when they retire is if they do have a company pension, whether they will take 100%, 75%, 50%, 25% joint survivor options. And you said in the book something I thought was very interesting, that you usually advise people to take the 100% option, and in fact you don't suffer much of a loss of pension by taking that 100%.
That's chapter number 6 in the book, and there are specific guidelines and charts that if you fill in the number for your specific companies and what they're offering you, you'll know if it's expensive or it's not, which pension option to take. What you're really talking about, for those who may not know, is that a lot of husbands, for instance, may work, and when they retire, they're allowed to choose an option that they will get so much money per month. But when they die, the spouse will only get 25% or 50% or 100% of what their husband was receiving, regardless of how much it costs. Usually the husband dies first, and you can't afford to have a 50% cut of his pension or a 75% 20 years after you've retired. Most male financial advisors, it's very interesting, will say, oh, you don't need that much money. Take the 50% option so that the wife only gets 50% when the husband dies, but that will give you more money to live on today. Wrong. If you can't live on $100 or $200 less today, how is the wife going to live on maybe $500 to $1,000 less 20 years from now? So that's one of the more important chapters in the book. And women out there, you should really, really read it, because that alone may save the quality of your life when you're 70, 80, 90 years of age.
Especially in the sad case where a man may live 5 years and he's collected his full retirement, and that's been lovely, but all of a sudden the woman may be left with nothing at all if he's chosen that maximum.
Yeah, if we knew when the death date was to happen, we could plan beautifully. But since you don't, you always have to plan as if that day was going to happen today.
I'm thinking too, excuse me, that if all this is shaky, if Social Security is shaky, and even the company pension plan is shaky, and how is the average person then going to plan?
Little by little.
When we're talking about baby boomers who are already, what, 45?
Mm-hmm. You see, the corporations brought in this 401k concept, which most corporations have, or their deferred comp, because pensions are a thing of the past. Very few companies anymore, when you retire, are actually going to give you a pension or a monthly check. That was a thing for my parents and people who are maybe 55 or 60 today. But most of my friends, and I'm in my 40s, they work for companies and they're never going to get a pension. So you have to do it little by little and put everything aside and not look at it as this big overwhelming thing. I gave you numbers earlier on what $100 a month could do. Maybe you could afford to put $200 or $300 away, but you've got to start somewhere, and something when you retire will always be better than nothing. But don't get overwhelmed by the negativity and the pessimism out there about Social Security and all these things. Just take day by day at a time and little by little, and the money will mount up.
Now, to go back to our pre-retirement person, what can that person do with the severance pay, or that also comes into play with the early retirement? If he or she takes that severance pay, the IRS is going to get an awfully big share of it.
So again, a severance pay is usually what a corporation will give you to entice you to retire earlier than you had planned to do. Most severance pays aren't necessarily a good idea because not only are income taxes taken out of it, but you have your Social Security tax and your Medicare tax. So there are many things you're going to have to consider with that money. But if you do take a severance, most people use that severance to live on until they can actually find another job. If you happen to be lucky enough that you won't have to live on it, then put it away towards growth investments so that it will build up longer and longer to be able to provide you income when you actually do retire.
You had an interesting bit about withholding tax, advising people not to have withholding made from their pension, from any of those three legs that they may enjoy of their retirement earnings.
So when you retire from a corporation and they do give you a pension check, since you're no longer an employee of that corporation, it's not mandatory that they take your Social Security and your FICA and all these other things that are normally taken out. So most people have, the corporations, however, withhold their income taxes. What you're doing if you have a company withhold income taxes for you after you've retired when it's not mandatory anymore is you're giving the IRS an interest-free loan. So is there one person out there that would give the government $3,000 a year interest-free? No. So if you're not willing to do it, then simply the way to avoid it is to pay estimated income taxes. And again, there are guidelines in the book as to how to do that, when to do it, and it will save you a lot of money and interest over your lifetime.
And you're saying only if you have no discipline about spending should you have the taxes withheld from.
Yeah, I called this syndrome fleet feet. If you have fleet feet, meaning you get your pension check and you spend every penny of it and you don't have the discipline to save what you will owe on taxes in a side account, just have your company withhold taxes, because it's better to have the taxes than to have to pay the penalties that you'll owe if you don't have the tax money.
You seem to advocate a take the money and run concept by saying that it's better to retire at 62 than 65. But is this realistic given the inability of American people generally to save?
So it's not that I say to retire. What I say about that is it's better to take Social Security at 62 than wait till you're 65. Again, there are calculations in the book that will show you that if you take Social Security at 62, how much better off you will be in the long run if you do that. Remember, if you take it at 62, you have 3 years that you've been collecting Social Security than if you waited till you were 65. And if you took that money and just simply saved it and then invested it for interest, the interest on that money plus what you're getting from Social Security will have equaled what you would get at the age of 65. So it's better to do it at 62 than 65.
You had a simple principle in a way that I thought was very interesting for those people who are retired, and you called it maximizing the income and minimizing the outgo. And I thought we might talk about a few of the ways. One of the ways you mentioned to maximize income might be a reverse mortgage. I didn't know much about reverse mortgages, and I haven't heard many people talking about it, so I'm guessing that maybe our viewers also haven't heard much. And it's an interesting concept.
Yeah, a reverse mortgage is simply when somebody owns a home, and let's say they're over the age of 62, because you have to be over usually 60 or 62 for this to apply. And somewhere in there you've paid off your house. It's really the only asset that you have. Maybe all your other money is either invested and it's generating income for you already, or you don't have any other money. And it's a way for people to keep their home, but live off of their home as a mortgage. It's a reverse. The bank pays you for you to live in that house.
Sounds too good to be true.
And there are many things, however, that you have to know about reverse mortgages. And again, the book gives many places that you can write, so you know questions to ask, all the different kinds of reverse mortgages that are out there, and who should do it and who shouldn't. So reverse mortgages can be wonderful if you want to stay living in your house, and if you need extra income and your house is paid off, great. You take out what's called a reverse mortgage, where the bank pays you to stay there rather than you borrowing money and you have to pay the bank back that way.
Now that we've done some maximizing the income, how do we minimize the outgo?
It's actually minimizing expenses. Many of us spend money unnecessarily. Maybe we have debt. Maybe, for instance, we have $10,000 sitting in a money market fund, that we have $10,000 that we've run up on credit cards. And we don't want to spend that $10,000 that we have in the bank to pay off our credit cards because we're afraid that if we do that, we won't have any money left. So the money's earning that we have maybe 3 or 4%, and we're paying 19% on credit card debt. Makes no sense. So there's all kinds of ways in the books that show you, if you have a house or you have, so we'll take a house for instance, how you can take out a home equity loan and know that that's your backup in case of an emergency. Pay off, take the $10,000, pay off the credit card debts, and if you ever need money, you can always write yourself a check from the home equity line of credit.
And then you mentioned paying yourself back once you've used that $10,000 to pay off your 19% credit card. You can take the money you would have been paying on your credit card and pay yourself back.
That's right. So,
and I think you showed figures that show how quickly you might be able to
get it back. This book just isn't about those people who have money. This book really isn't going to teach you how to save for retirement. It's not going to tell you how you can put your $100 here or your $100 there. This book literally saves your retirement, which is why I think it's so popular. It's about to go into its 4th or 5th printing in just 4 months. So people are loving it because it just doesn't address people who have a lot of money. If you have no money and you're in debt, it addresses you as well. And it really keeps whatever you have, whether large or small, safe and sound.
So that brings me back to a question that I should ask. When you were writing this book, who did you have in mind?
I had in mind, truthfully, older people, because there's nothing sadder than having a client come in my office who's 60, 70, or 80 years of age, and I have to be the one to say to them, you know what? You don't have enough money to live on anymore. And I can't tell you how many people I see in that situation, and the reason that they're in that situation are silly little mistakes that they made that could have been avoided. So therefore, I wrote this book in the hopes that people would learn that you don't have to be a financial whiz to take care of your money. There are little things that you have to have in place. It doesn't matter if you're 70 or if you're 40. Things can happen to you. We don't know when things are going to happen to you. So therefore, if you put these things in place today, I know tomorrow will always be okay. So I didn't want to reach just the people that were coming into my office. I wanted to reach the entire United States to say, okay, do this, and then you'll be okay.
There are a lot of financial planners out there, called by a lot of different names.
Can you swear on TV? Anyway, it's all right.
How does the novice go out looking and who wants to find an honest, reputable, competent financial planner?
They cross their fingers on one level. On the other level, chapter number 1 in the book, The Guardian Angel Syndrome, will give you explicit guidelines on how to find a financial advisor, what you should ask them, and what you should look for, and how you monitor them after you've trusted them with your money. Most people can't even tell me how much their financial advisor has been making for them. They check the oil in their car more than they check their bank accounts or their brokerage accounts. So you have to be careful. Truthfully, you should become your own financial advisor. You can do things on your own today that you couldn't do 10 years ago. You should listen to radio stations of people who aren't brokers, but who just are doing it to give you advice. And again, if you feel like you need a financial advisor, read chapter number 1 in the book and follow the guidelines very carefully, and then you'll be okay.
Well, now in the short time that we have left, what's happening to Social Security?
That's a good question. What is happening to Social Security, and how have they let it happen to Social Security? Social Security, Medicare are all in trouble. I can't tell you what's happening to it because the truth is I don't think anybody really knows. I can tell you that it's getting more and more and more in trouble. They've postponed the dates as to when you can start collecting full Social Security. For me, I won't be able to collect my full Social Security if it's around till 67, possibly 70. So all I can tell you is that we can't trust what's happening with Social Security anymore. We have to trust ourselves. We have to know that we're going to have to provide for ourselves, and if Social Security is there, good. And if it's not, all right, we'll still be okay. But if those of you are counting on Social Security to be your only source of income when you get older, I would tell you, let's start looking for another source because it just might not be there.
And also, the taxability is rising on Social Security.
Yeah, years ago, you never paid
Wasn't
taxes
taxed
on
at
it.
all.
Now you're going up to 85, you're possibly coming back down to 50. But even though it looks like Social Security may be less taxed now, going from 85 to 50, other things may be taxed more. Maybe our home mortgage deduction won't be allowed. Maybe we're going to go to a flat tax anyway, so it's not going to matter. They'll tax it through the back door because maybe they'll count Social Security in your income. So the government is in trouble. We have a huge debt.
And the government is us.
That's right. We have a huge debt. Somewhere, somebody's going to have to pay the piper. And I'm afraid, my dears, we're that piper.
Okay, we have 2 minutes to discuss what you call the most important chapter in your book, and that is the one on long-term health care. Should we all have long-term health care?
You should all have long-term health care. 1 out of 3 people watching the show today will spend some time in a nursing home after the age of 65. Health insurance will not pay for it. Medicare will not pay for it after the first 20 days, and good luck getting them to pay for it for the first 20 days. Who's going to pay for it? You are, out of your own pocket. Unless you're financially destitute, then the state will pay for it, or Medicaid. So there's one thing to do about it. Look into long-term care insurance. Chapter 4 in the book gives explicit guidelines on how to find a good policy, how much it should cost, and questions you should ask your agent. The sooner you do it, the better. Perfect age to buy it is at age 54. It would only be for a Cadillac policy, maybe $600 a year. That's nothing compared to $3,000 a year today that it would cost, or possibly $15,000 a year, 30 years from, or $15,000 a month rather, 30 years from now for a nursing home. So you can pay $655 a year right now, or $3,000 a month.
Now, the trend seems to be away from actual nursing home care to care in one's home. Will a Cadillac policy cover that?
A Cadillac policy will also cover care in the home. However, care in the home doesn't go on for very long, because what happens is the nurse doesn't show up, something happens, and before you know it, after a year or two, the person usually ends up into a nursing home. So it's
buy long-term
care insurance that covers you either way you want to go.
And our long-term has become short-term. We're out of time. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for
Your
having
book
me.
was great. I recommend it to the viewers. Join us again.
A presentation of the Hennepin County Library.